Sean, what's going on? I'm back in North America and I'm feeling good. I got my Dunkin' iced tea. I got my Mets going on. We got hockey. This is good stuff, Sean. You feeling good?
You're living the life. I'm not feeling as good as you, but I'll get there.
All right. Listen, you remember a couple of years ago, the slogan entering the playoffs was like, history will be made. Remember that?
Of course.
Yeah, and history was made. I don't remember the exact year, but I love the slogan. History was made Tuesday night in the National Hockey League, the first night of action in North America. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, and history was made in Seattle. History was made in Utah. And history was made in Florida. I mean, in Seattle, you had Jessica Campbell, first female coach on the bench, assistant for the Seattle Kraken. In Utah, obvious, you had the first game for the Utah Hockey Club. I thought it was a special night there. And in Florida, Sean, you had the first Stanley Cup championship banner raising for the Florida Panthers. That's a way to kick off the North American schedule here.
It was an amazing triple header. And it was so awesome to sit from 4:30 till well into the evening watching hockey. I'll tell you, I was taking New Jersey Transit home last night from the office. We are in Mets territory, as you well noted. I can guarantee you I was probably the only one on my train with the Seattle Kraken game on my phone.
Did you see Grimace?
No, that's the New York subway, dude.
I know, but you were going the wrong way too. Maybe Grimace was coming from, Central Jersey, had to come up, but you were going the wrong way to see Grimace.
I'm always going the wrong way, Dan. It's the story of my life.
Well, listen, I was home and I'm very clear here. I'm a diehard Mets fan. I had the Mets game on and I had the Seattle Kraken and St. Louis Blues on as well. I was paying attention to both. I got to tell you, the guy who I am most impressed with on opening night in the National Hockey League Tuesday night, Ray Ferraro. Ray Ferraro calls the game in Seattle, hops a plane, calls the game in Utah. That man had a legendary night.
That's a good night, but let's be honest. His commute from Seattle to Utah was probably easier than my commute from New York to New Jersey on New Jersey Transit. So
anything's easier than that.
It probably took the same amount of time too, which is always shocking. Like whenever I go anywhere in the NHL, I'm like, that's how long it takes me to go to work. Like if you go from here to Buffalo, that's how long it takes me to get to work when I have to go into the office. So it kind of puts things in perspective. But no, he had a great night, and he was witness to two really amazing things, right? When you think about Jessica Campbell and what she accomplished, and Tracy Myers did an amazing job for us profiling Jessica before the game, and then things looked so great for them. They were up 2-0, they were flying, and I just remember, the interview on the bench with Dan Bosma, who was coaching his first game and got a little overshadowed. Even in the cheers, he got a little overshadowed. Jessica got a bigger cheer than he did. But the reporter said, "Hey, you guys are really flying out there. You really have it all together." And he's like, "Well, I'm glad you noticed." And because it felt like they had that game in control. And then they took a penalty, after an offside where they shot the puck after it was out offsides, and it changed the whole momentum. St. Louis scored 3 goals in the blink of an eye and kind of put a damper on what was an amazing celebration. You can't ruin it. What Jessica did is unbelievable, and it opens the door for so many more people coming through the pipeline, and there's nothing can take away from that. And then he leaves there and he goes to Utah, and that building was banana land.
Yeah. Awesome. It was just
it
so
was a
fun
playoff
to watch.
game.
Yeah. It was so fun to watch the excitement in Utah. And then Dylan Gunther scores, gets him going early. Like, they didn't have to wait very long. They get up, they get a lead. Listen, that's a game that's tailor-made for them to win. We know the Blackhawks are going to struggle again. Bedard gets a couple of assists and whatnot, but you couldn't ask for a more special start. I do want to point out one thing here. Lauri Markkanen, the Finnish player on the Utah Jazz who brought the game puck out on skates, University of Arizona basketball player. Just wanted to point that out, all right? Big night for Lauri Markkanen. But no, listen, it was just a special night in Utah, and it's exactly what it was supposed to be. It's amazing what they've accomplished in such a short period of time. And then the team, this is going to be a fun and exciting team. It really is. And I'll be honest with you, like, I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. I don't. I think they'll miss by a point or two. I really do. I think they missed by a point or two or three or something like that. But it's a fun, exciting, young team. You saw that. And now, like we talked to Clayton Keller about it, right, John? Now they got, and I'm not to disparage the Coyotes fan base. They couldn't fill the building. They couldn't fit that many people in the building when they played at Mullet Arena last year and the last 2 years. Now they got a building. They got excitement. They have fans who are just, all over it. Again, like I said a couple weeks ago, I have a friend of mine who lives out there in Utah, and he went to the University of Utah, and he said people are just dying to get season tickets. Like, there's so much buzz. There's so much excitement, and you could sense that the players were really thriving in that environment. It's going to die down, right, as it always does. Maybe not their home games, but, I mean, this is an 82-game grind. But for a start, it was terrific, the electricity in the building. And just to quickly flip it back to Jessica Campbell, too, because I know we were talking about that as well. Trailblazer, obviously, well earned. I mean, her path is the path you would take to get on an NHL bench. I mean, this is not given. This is a path of going overseas, of being in the AHL, and power skating coach. And Tracy did a terrific job on that. And Dan Bylsma should be overshadowed for that. And he probably agrees with it because Dan Bylsma didn't make history last night. Dan Bylsma's not a Trailblazer. Jessica Campbell is, and the loss. It matters to the Seattle Kraken, no question about it. And it matters to Jessica Campbell, and it's probably the first thing she thought about when she woke up this morning. But it's, in the big picture, it's irrelevant to what happened last night in Seattle and what it means for hockey in the future.
It's another game that the Kraken didn't score more than 2 goals, though.
Yes.
That's
We're going to have a few of those this year.
That's what killed them last year. And you hope that Dan and Jessica, inject some offense into that team. The Coachella Valley and the American Hockey League, where they both came from before they were hired here, that's Seattle's affiliate. They were the top scoring team in the AHL, and they were top 5 in each of the last 2 years when they reached the Calder Cup final. So, if anybody knows how to generate offense, it's Dan, and Jessica's shown that she can do it. But, and before we get to Florida, I just want to go back to Utah for 1 second. You know what last night felt like, Dan?
What?
A playoff game.
Stop.
It felt like a playoff atmosphere and a playoff game.
It did not. It did not. All right, hold on. All right, it felt like a unique, special environment where the fans knew that history was being made and they were a part of it. When it comes time for them to host playoff hockey, it will be better. It will be that much. It'll be 10 times better. So no, it was not a playoff game. It didn't play out like a playoff game. With all due respect, the Chicago Blackhawks are going nowhere near the playoffs this year, okay? So it's not even close. The atmosphere was special. It was historic. It didn't have a playoff feel. Stop it.
Okay, whatever you say, boss.
I like that. You can call me boss again.
Yeah, sure, boss. Whatever you say.
Listen, before we go on, we're going to get to Florida. We're going to get to the goalies, but do want to mention a couple of guests coming up. We're going to have interviews, still playing these interviews from the Player Media Tour because they're still relevant and they're all excellent, to be honest with you. I hope you've enjoyed the last 8 that we've played in these last 4 episodes that we've done the past 4 weeks. But coming up on this one, Macklin Celebrini, the San Jose Sharks rookie, the number 1 pick in the draft. He's going to be making his debut Thursday at home against those Blues that scored 3. Jordan Kyrou dominated and beat Seattle. So we got Macklin Celebrini, and then a little later on, Mackenzie Weegar, the Calgary Flames. I think we both agree that the Flames are going to struggle this year. We're not the only ones who agree with that. But the interview with Mackenzie Weegar was quite interesting, so definitely listen for that as well. But Sean, we got through Campbell. We got to Utah, and like I mentioned at the top, Florida also history, the banner going up. But beyond that, the Florida Panthers don't look like they missed a beat, did they? I mean, come right out, the score 4 right off the hop. And I understand they're not facing Jeremy Swayman. They're facing Jonas Korpisalo. I don't know that would have mattered the way they came out and they played that game against the Boston Bruins. We'll get to Swayman in a minute here. But the goal by Sam Reinhart, Sean, the shorthanded goal, that's a goal scorer's goal, and a guy who kills penalties comes down the wing into the left circle and finds enough on it to not just get enough on it, but to roof it into the far right corner. A terrific goal, and the Florida Panthers right where they left off, Sean.
We're going to get to our predictions a little later in the show, but I'm going to spoil it a little bit by saying that I picked the Boston Bruins.
So did I.
To go to the Cup final.
So did I.
And I'm reconsidering after last
No.
night. No, I'm not reconsidering, but they did not look anywhere near a Boston Bruins team. If I'm Jonas Corposalo and this loss had nothing to do with him, I thought he played brilliantly. I go in that locker room. I go in that locker room and I start swinging because they left him out to dry.
They did. Defensively,
they looked like they
good.
had no business being there. They look like the team who raised the banner.
And a lot of times that's what happens, right? The team that raises the banner has a slow start because they've been so, juiced up from the banner raising the night before. They got their rings, the beautiful rings that they got, and then they come out flat because your energy's spent already from all the emotion that you had. Well, that didn't happen at all. And I agree with you, Sean, but the Bruins looked poor defensively in that game. I wouldn't say Jonas Corposalo played brilliantly. I don't think he was the reason that they lost, but I wouldn't say brilliant for him. However, you and I both picked the Bruins to go to the Stanley Cup final out of the East. We both had them losing in the Stanley Cup final. We'll wait on the Cup winners that we have for a little later on in the episode, but I would imagine, and I think you would agree, that they'll correct this pretty quickly, the way they play defense.
Yeah, I would hope so. And it wasn't only defense, it was effort, right? Like, they got run out of the building on effort, which you almost never see from a Boston team. And Matthew Tkachuk was in mid-season form. How many penalties did he draw last night? It was 2, at least maybe 3, and I think the signature moment was late in the game. There was that crowd around Korpisalo because he got run over, and 2 guys had Tkachuk bent over the net, and he was smirking.
Yeah, loves it.
Like, he was so happy because he knew they were getting penalties. He wasn't going to get involved. He was just smirking. He was like a little kid who got his sister in trouble.
Well, that's Matthew Tkachuk at his best. That's him at his best. He's under your skin, and then he beats you, right? I mean, first he gets under your skin, and then he beats you. And really, Sean, that's what the Florida Panthers are when they're at their best. They get under the skin of the opponent, and then they go out and they beat you. I mean, their opening game against Boston Tuesday night, they beat you and got under the skin at the same time. They were just flying all over the place. The 6-4 score is not indicative of the way that game was played. Florida's going to be good. They're going to be really good. And you wonder, when does it catch up with them, though, Sean? Like, I mean, when does it? This is a lot of hockey over 2 years, and it's got to catch up eventually, right? I mean, to even Tampa Bay, right? So when Tampa Bay...
It didn't catch up to Tampa Bay.
Well, I was about to say, Tampa Bay had the COVID. So they went and they won the Stanley Cup in the bubble. So as hard as that was mentally, there was no travel involved, except for shifting from one city to the other when they're in a bubble. Mentally challenging, unlike anything I think that they'll go through again. But the travel-wise, it wasn't there. And then they played a shortened season. Then it was a shortened season, okay? And they won it again. Then they played the full season and they got back to the Stanley Cup final. It was different. It was different than what this Florida Panthers team has gone through. 2 full seasons, 2 full playoff runs, and they were really beat up after the first one. They were not at all after the second one. But, you just wonder when does it catch up? I think it will eventually. They'll probably hit some type of slump at some point, almost expected. But it didn't catch up with them on opening night. They were flying.
No, and it was amazing, and the place was sold out. They've already sold out for the whole year. It's amazing what winning will do for you.
Yep.
They've sold out their season ticket packages for the whole year. So, winning's huge. And you think about where they were and where they are now and the journey that they've kind of had with Barkov and all those foundational pieces. And I think it sets up perfectly for the interview we're going to have in less than a minute with Celebrini, right? With Macklin Celebrini in San Jose. They're not in a good place right now, but they have a lot of young pieces that are going to grow up together. And you look at teams like Florida and other teams that have gone through rebuilds and kind of built around their pieces. This is what the future could be in San Jose if everything hits right.
Yeah, 100%, and it's a great segue. Let's get to the interview that we did with Macklin Celebrini. He talked about living with Joe Thornton. He talked about the excitement of getting to opening night, which is finally here for him. He was dealing with an injury in the preseason. He's back. He should be in the lineup for opening night Thursday against the Blues. And Sean, you're 100% right. They're far away from it now. You can't even see it over the horizon at this point, but they're building it the right way. So's Anaheim. Chicago's trying to do the same thing. These are teams that in the future are going to be the teams that maybe what we see with the Florida Panthers now, or maybe they can sustain it the way the Boston Bruins have, or the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's going to take some time for them to get there. But here is our interview with Macklin Celebrini. Macklin, thanks for joining us. So I got to get it out of the way. I think I know the answer, but I wanted to ask you anyway. Number 71. Why do you wear number 71? Is there a specific guy or reason, or is it just a reverse number from what you had?
It was kind of, because obviously I was 17 for the longest time through growing up, and then last year at BU it wasn't available, so I just kind of switched it, and I had a pretty good year, so I just decided to keep it.
You just stay with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty good. It was the best year in college hockey probably since Paul Kariya. Pretty good.
Yeah. No.
As you go forward now and you start to do this, we're here at the Player Media Tour and you've done some other stuff. Are you and rookie showcases coming at the end of this week? Are you starting to feel like the NHL is real?
Yeah, 100%. Going through all this, it's starting to become more real, and there's definitely a lot of excitement, and I'm really looking forward to things starting to get going here.
October 10th against the St. Louis Blues at home. If you're there, put me there. Put yourself there. What's that like? Explain it. What are you envisioning? Because it's the night you've been envisioning for the longest time, probably.
Yeah. It's going to be a very surreal night, playing my first NHL game. So, hopefully we have a great crowd. Everyone is excited to be there, and hopefully we get the win.
What is it like for you though? You know that you're kind of one of the central pieces of what's going to be a renaissance in San Jose, hopefully. Much in the way that Thornton and Marleau were a generation ago. It's going to be you, Will Smith, Askarov, those guys. What's that like to have and you've had it your whole life, but to kind of have that legacy already kind of put on you and that pressure?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of pressure and expectations that come with it. Not only from fans and people in our organization, but also myself. You also try not to think about it like that. At the end of the day, I haven't even played my first NHL game yet, so it's going to be a long process. And like you said, we have so many amazing young talented players, and even the vets we have this year that are there. Guys who've been around the league and seen a lot and will teach us so much. It's tough to kind of think about it like that, just because that's so far in the future, and there's a lot of steps that need to be taken to kind of get there, but it's definitely something that we're going to be building towards.
Do you remember the first time you either felt pressure and expectations or realized that because of your ability that there were pressure and expectations on you?
If you ask if I've ever felt pressure or expectations, I think when I was 6 years old, I was still putting pressure on myself because I wanted to score a goal or win the game.
How about outside though? Not on you.
No,
like not yourself, somebody else. Like maybe you saw something, you read something, you heard something. Like, wait a minute, they're talking about me, and that they're expecting me to do this.
Yeah, I mean, probably around the years I went to Shattuck, 14, 15, 16, when I went to the Chicago Steel, around those times, there was a little bit more expectations. Like when I played for the Junior Sharks at 14, there wasn't much of that at all. So I think once I left for Shattuck, and we have obviously had a very good team with Cole Eisman and so many other great players that were drafted. There was a lot of hype and attention around our team, and that was probably when I first started hearing it.
It's so interesting that you talked about that. That team was loaded, but you were all little kids, right? You were just entering your teenage years, and now you're all entering the NHL together. And like, was there a part where you weren't a kid because you were all so celebrated and you were all so talented that it was something else? It was about getting to the NHL, where for most kids being 14 is about being 14.
Yeah, no. I mean, at the end of the day, we were kids, and we liked having fun like every 14-year-old kid. Like, we'd always go golfing or just sit on the big field in front of Shattuck St. Mary's and throw a football around or baseball or whatever and just kind of enjoy it. But all of us, I mean, we knew we had a very good team. I think we went 49-1-1 that year. So we knew the kind of players we had on that team, and we knew that more often, like, there's a good chance that a couple of those guys in that locker room were going to play at high levels. So I feel like we all had that drive. Like 6:30 in the morning, we were all on the ice, and after practice, before practice, lifts, there's that compete in our room. And partially it is because we had such a great team that everyone was pushing themselves to be better, to be better than the guys sitting next to you, and it created a really good culture for our group as well.
Do you remember who beat you?
Yep, Minnesota Blades. Yeah.
They're like the Northern Illinois of your life?
They, yeah, literally.
You've been around pro sports, though, right? I mean, you've been around pro sports for a while through your dad's work and whatnot. How is that a benefit to you now as you enter into the pro sports world at such a young age? But your dad is there. He works for the Warriors. He's been around it. You've been around it. What's the benefit of that for you now?
Mm-hmm. I think just looking at those guys and seeing how they've approached being professional athletes, like the things they've done, the steps they've taken to take care of their bodies, nutrition, exercises, recovery, the work that they put in, the focus of the work that they put in, and the stories that my dad tells me about these athletes. Those are all things that are very valuable, especially now, like now that I'm trying to make a career for myself. Just knowing those things, knowing what some of the top athletes in the world have done to stay there and keep improving throughout time. I feel like that it's something that's super valuable for me.
You learned early on that it was a business and not a fantasy world.
No, it's still a fantasy world. Like even like watching other professional leagues now, it's still watching like the NHL and MLB and NFL, NBA, all those professional sports leagues. It's still a little bit of a fantasy, but no, there's definitely, you saw the people behind that show.
Yeah, you've been behind the curtain. I mean, you've seen it behind the curtain, and that I can totally see how that would benefit you. So I wanted to ask you this. Dinner invitation. You can go to one of these people. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, or Sidney Crosby. Who's getting the dinner invitation?
I mean, I think for me it's Sidney Crosby, just because, I mean, he was my idol growing up. So that'd be pretty cool for me. No disrespect to Steve Kerr and Draymond and stuff, but no, for me it'd be Sid.
Have you met him? Talked with him at all?
Sid?
Crosby.
Yeah.
So you have. Did you like when you meet a guy like that, and you've met other professional athletes, but this one plays your sport. When you meet these guys now that you're going to now be playing against, what do you ask? What do you want to get? What do you want to learn?
I mean, I try not to pry too much or bug them.
You can nibble though.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, in the right setting, you try to learn from them, but most of it's just being respectful, trying to just talk to them, learn a little bit about them. These are guys you've watched your whole life, and they're the guys at the pinnacle of your sport. So for me, it was just trying to just talk to them, meet them, and learn a little bit about them.
So that 14-year-old kid at Shattuck, if I told him that the year you become pro, that you get drafted into the NHL, you're going to live with Joe Thornton, what does that kid tell me?
You'd be like, that's crazy. No, I mean, I can't wait for that. That's going to be a very
The whole world can't wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
We've talked with other guys about this, and Sidney Crosby did it right with Mario Lemieux. What has Joe told you? What has he told you about the situation and the benefits that maybe it could be? What do you feel the benefits of that relationship could be about that living situation in your first year?
I actually haven't talked too much with him about it, but I mean, for me, I look at it as, he's one of the best passers of all time. He's had a legendary career, pretty much done everything. He's the first overall pick. Just, he's gone through it all, and going into my first year with kind of similar situation he went to, just learn from his wisdom and the lessons that he has, and some questions that I may have throughout the season. And obviously he's a hockey genius, so being able to talk the game with him and hear his opinions, see what he thinks I should work on, or different things like that, I feel like is very valuable for me.
But you've probably watched him throughout your growing up years. He's not going to be like a dad. He's going to be like your eccentric uncle, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Can you grow a beard?
No, I can't grow a beard.
No?
So, and I don't think I'd ever touch a beard like he had. So.
You will not find a razor in the house, probably.
No, probably
There'll
not.
be no razors in the house because you don't need one, and he certainly doesn't use them at all.
100%.
So, listen, Macklin, really appreciate you coming by here. Thanks so much. Good luck with it. Good luck with the first year, and we'll be watching, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Really good stuff there from Macklin Celebrini. He gets his career going Thursday against the St. Louis Blues at the Shark Tank. So, Sean, prediction time, okay? And let's stick to the West. We both already have the Boston Bruins. We talked about it. We've mentioned it. We both have the Boston Bruins representing the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Final. We differ on the West, and we'll go right to the top. I have the Edmonton Oilers. You have the Colorado Avalanche. I have the Oilers winning the Stanley Cup. You have the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. So we both agree Boston's going to lose in the Stanley Cup Final. And I will tell you, I've said this before, I'm not going to be the one that says to you, no way, man. How could you pick the Avalanche? That's crazy talk. I just don't think that they're as deep as the Oilers are. I don't think that they'll be able to. They don't have the depth, and we're talking right now, right? We're not talking March 7th trade deadline. We're talking what we see right now. To me, the Avalanche don't have the depth, especially up front, to win 16 games in the playoffs. You're talking about a team in Colorado that could have three guys in the guy with the best name in National Hockey League, Ivan. Callum Ritchie and Nikolai Kovalenko in their lineup. There's three rookies. It's hard to say. It's hard to go like, oh, okay, yeah, they're the team with three rookies is going to do it. Whereas you look at Edmonton, once you get past McDavid and Draisaitl, and let's clearly not overlook them, Sean, Zach Hyman, right? I mean, Victor Arvidsson, Matthias Janmark, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jeff Skinner. To me, it's just the forward depth is too strong for the Edmonton Oilers. It's stronger than it is for the Avalanche. Listen, if Nichushkin comes back and plays well, if Landeskog can come back and be half the player he was before the knee injuries cost him the last 2 seasons, maybe I'll be spinning a different tune here. But I just don't see enough there for Colorado.
Look, you have your opinion. You've never let facts get in the way of it. I just look at Edmonton, right? And there's a couple of things that stand out that give me apprehension. You know, I think they're a Western Conference final team. Like, I think they're really good. I picked them to win the division. I think they're going to dominate at times this year. They're really old. They're the oldest team in hockey. A lot of the support players you talked about are old, like tail end of their career old. At the end of a 100-game season, that's problematic. I'm not in love with their goaltending. I don't think their defense is that deep. And emotionally, it's really hard to come back from what they did. Look, I know Florida did it last year, but it's been, twice in 15 years? Pittsburgh did it in those back-to-backs against Detroit. It's really hard to do.
It is really hard to do. And I'm not denying it. Pittsburgh did it. They lost in 08. They won in 09. Obviously, you know, Tampa won it, you know, back-to-back years. The Florida Panthers lost 2 years ago. They won last season. The hunger is, and I'm not going to, we had Nathan McKinnon on last week, and he talked about the hunger that they have, that he has to win the Stanley Cup again. That's his encore, right? From what he did last year, 140-point season. Go win the Stanley Cup again. But then you look at what the Edmonton Oilers went through. Look at that raw emotion that if you haven't watched Face Off on the Amazon show, watch it. Look at that raw emotion from Connor McDavid and how much it burned at him that they lost. There was the screaming, right, after I think it was game 2 when they were down, not good enough, and there was the tears after they lost game 7. I thought it was the best stuff we've seen in any of the NHL reality shows that have happened. I thought it was the most raw and the best stuff that we've seen. And it speaks to me about where this Oilers team is. Connor McDavid's going to win the Stanley Cup at some point. It's going to happen. He's too good. They're too good not to. This is the year it happens.
Who says they're going to win the Stanley Cup?
Me. I just did.
There's a lot of great players in this game that have never won the Stanley Cup. Ever.
Not disagreeing with you.
This birthright that Connor McDavid has to win the Stanley Cup, I don't get it.
There's a number of players that have played the game, that have played in sports, that have been elite players that haven't won. But they haven't been on their team. This team is ready to win. Like, this team is built to win. They have the depth. The goaltending is good enough. The defense is good enough. The forward depth is maybe the strongest there is in the league. The top end talent is the strongest there is in the league when you have McDavid and Draisaitl. They have it. They've been there. They've got the experience now. It's going to happen. It's going to happen this season.
Okay. Well, I don't agree. I look.
Obviously.
They couldn't
I'm very
beat
strong on this, though.
They couldn't beat Florida last year. Dallas gave them all they could handle. Like, I don't see it as that clear cut.
They gave Dallas all they could handle, too. They gave Dallas more than Dallas could handle. So, anyway, let's see where it goes. We can argue this all day, but the West, too. Let's take a look at our predictions, Sean, for the Western Conference playoff teams, because we agree on 7 of the 8 teams. And they're maybe in different order. Like, you know, in the Central, I have it as Nashville first, Dallas second, Colorado third. You have it as Colorado first, Dallas second, Nashville third. Okay, fine. In the Pacific, I have Edmonton, Vancouver, Vegas in that order. You have Edmonton, Vancouver, Vegas, Vancouver. Okay? So we just disagree on Vancouver and Vegas. I have Winnipeg as the first wild card. You have Winnipeg as the first wild card. I have the St. Louis Blues as the second wild card. You have Utah. Why Utah?
Because I think they're ready. I think that they've made this journey and made these incremental steps to this point, and there's no more excuses. There's no more, oh, we don't have a building, we don't have fan support, oh, what's going to happen in our future, where are we going to be? All those mental things that drain you from concentrating on hockey. And their core is getting older and becoming more accomplished, and their coach is, to me, really good and not talked about enough for what he's done since he's been in the organization. So for me, it's just time, right? We've always talked about the teams in the East and how they're trying to climb out, the Buffaloes and the Detroits and the Ottawas. Well, this is Utah's time. And I think there's juice from being in a new place for the first time. They're not going to be the Colorado Avalanche who moved from Quebec and won the Stanley Cup, but they are going to make the playoffs and make it a really special year. I just think that they're ready.
See, I think they're close. And my point why they're not quite there yet, and I mean, if you ask for a bold prediction, I say they missed by a point, maybe two. Guys like Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley, Matthias Michelli, Josh Doan, I think there's still got to be a little bit of that growth, that pain of coming close and missing it. I think that they're at that step, and they're not enough beyond those guys for Utah to completely take the big jump. They're going to take a jump this year. We saw it on opening night, how fast they can be and how exciting they can be. Their defense is improved. Is their goaltending good enough? Listen, we just question the goaltending of the Avalanche and the Oilers. You have to question the goaltending also of Utah if you're going to do that. Whereas I look at the St. Louis Blues and I see a team that's a little bit more accomplished, that has more of the understanding, if you will, the depth. Kyrou has been there. Falk, Thomas, these guys have Shen, Leddy, Parayko, Buchnevich. They've been around. They understand it. And I think that they're going to – and Binnington, no question about it. I think that that's going to get them, just nudge them apart. Just nudge them over the top, which is why I have them as a second wild card. Kind of what we saw on opening night, right? Just enough. And I think they're going to have just enough.
Well, I would argue that Utah suffered enough.
I don't know if it's suffered. I think they've been building. They understood what it was. They weren't suffering. They were building. And I think they're still building. But that's the one difference that we have. And the other thing is, we should mention it, is that neither one of us have the Calgary Flames in the playoffs. And I don't think they're going to be close. And I think that's one of the issues, actually, when you look at the Pacific Division. We both have Edmonton, Vegas, and Vancouver. That's a clear top three.
That's a 3-team division.
It's a 3-team division. Seattle is going to push. I think Seattle could push. But what we saw from Seattle on opening night, I think we're going to see a lot of it, is that team that's going to get them close. They're going to probably play a lot of one-goal games. They're not going to score enough. They're just not going to score enough to get over the hump. That's a 3-team division. That's why we both agree that 5 from the Central are going. But how good was Mackenzie Weegar when we talked to him, Sean?
He was fantastic, and he's the kind of guy that you need in what Calgary has, right? He's the kind of guy that takes nothing for granted, fought and clawed for everything he had, appreciates where he is in the league, and that he has the privilege of playing in the best league in the world. And I think that exudes throughout the lineup, and you need that, right? Like, I think one of the hardest things about being a not very good team is that players become complacent, right? It's the thing you always worry about when you're in a rebuild, right? And then you look at like a team like Anaheim or a team like Ottawa or Buffalo, where you get nervous that losing is okay. losing isn't okay. And for a player like Mackenzie Weegar, and when you listen to the interview we had with him, it's very clear that losing is not okay.
Yeah.
But he also understands the process.
He also got them the new building that they're going to go into eventually.
That's what he did.
That's what he did.
He's got that kind of pull. So when you have that going for you, you're golden.
Here's our interview with Mackenzie Weegar. Mackenzie, thanks for joining us. So it's been a couple of years now. How do you believe this trade's worked out for you?
You know, it's worked out in a lot of different ways. You know, obviously just personal relationships that I've gained in Calgary, you know, from the management to my teammates. It's worked out great there. And obviously I think, you know, on the ice, it's done, you know, a lot of different great things for me as well. I think Husk and even Daryl, when I first had Daryl, I thought, you know, towards the end of that season, I was getting a lot better, you know, and then Husk came in and my game last year, you know, kind of had a breakthrough year at 30 years old, you know, which you don't hear too often about. So, you know, both on and off the ice, I think the trades worked out for me.
What was behind that, the breakthrough? And like I think about it, the last guy I can think of that did that was another Flame was Mark Giordano.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure if I can hit one thing on the button, but I'd say a lot to do with coaching, a lot to do with, you know, being comfortable in the city after year one. You know, my teammates obviously, you know, helped me out a lot last year. I was getting a lot more power play time, playing all roles, all situations. And, you know, Dan Lambert, our assistant coach back there, had a lot of trust in me and, you know, helped me with my confidence. So, you know, there's a lot of different things that contribute to it. But I'd say the biggest thing would just be getting comfortable in the city of Calgary and, you know, making it feel a little bit more like home.
You know, I had seen this. I read a story towards the end of last season that you did with Eric Francis from Sportsnet. And it was very, very clear in that story, your commitment to Calgary, your commitment to the Flames. And listen, I mean, record-wise, it hasn't gone the way you've wanted it to, and it would be easy to wonder, right? But it's clear your commitment. I wonder, where does that come from? Why is it so strong to the Flames? Yes, you're under contract. I get that. You signed with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's a reason.
Yeah.
But beyond that, what do you see?
There's a lot of potential there. And, you know, and I also, you know, I've said this, you know, kind of out there before, you know, I'm not one to just quit, you know, and just ask for a trade, you know, when I feel a little bit uncomfortable or I see that, you know, it's going to be maybe, you know, potentially a rough couple of years there. You know, I think you get a little more from it when you grind through those tough years, and then you end up on a winning team and, you know, bringing a cup, you know, eventually to the city when you had to grind through those tough years. You know, it means so much more. It gets so much more special. So, you know, other than that, you know, I love the city of Calgary. I love all my teammates. You know, my fiance loves it there. It's an easy place to live, and, you know, I don't want to give up on the city and all my teammates.
You talked about the journey to a cup. Was there a little small part of you that was proud of the Panthers, or was it too difficult?
No, I was absolutely proud of them. You know, I think, you know, I wouldn't want to sit here and be, you know, bitter about that. I got a lot of great buddies on that team. Obviously, it was, you know, the first team that drafted me and gave me an opportunity. So, you know, there still holds something special to my heart with that city, of course. I think, you know, that's just human and that's just how I am. But, you know, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the fans. You know, they deserved it. They have a hell of a team. A lot of great players on that team. You know, but I didn't really look too much more into it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, cheer them on too much, of course. But I'm definitely happy for some of my old teammates that I played with and for that city.
It's a similar journey that you're taking on now in Calgary. Do you look at it almost like a blueprint? Like you talked about making that journey and becoming a cup contender.
Yeah.
You did that with Florida and then you left, and now you're doing it with Calgary. Are there similarities that you see?
Absolutely. You know, when Zito came in and, you know, made some moves, you know, Connie's got the opportunity, I think, to do the same. It didn't take, you know, Zito very long to, you know, build the championship team there. Obviously, there were some pieces there, you know, that were pretty tremendous at that winning the cup before Zito was there. But, you know, I feel the same with this team. I think there's a lot of potential, a lot of great players, you know, that can get better. We're young, a lot of ambitious young kids that have the opportunity to, you know, grow on their own and become superstars as well. You know, Zari and, you know, our first rounder Zane and, you know, Matthew Coronado. There's a lot of, you know, great potential there. And, hopefully, when we do get great, they don't ship me off.
But I read that you got the Flames the new rink deal.
Yeah, that was. I'm not sure what happened with that, but
It's all because of
it
you.
ended up being a good coincidence for sure.
What's the story behind that, though? There's a story behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it was at the end of the year. I think, maybe the Calgary media, I wasn't too used to it at the time, and they asked me just I forget who asked me and what the question was, but all that was on my mind was just a new arena. He could ask me how my day was, and I was thinking about a new arena.
Right.
So I just wanted to get it out there, and the Saddle Dome's obviously got a lot of history there, and people love it and whatnot. But we spend a lot of time there on the day to day, and it'd be great for that city to get a new rink. Obviously they are. So, but it was funny. Obviously it kind of got blown out after because they did tell us that they were breaking ground on a new arena, I think just a few days after. So I got a call from the owner after that, and he had a couple funny comments for me. I wasn't too sure. I was nervous when he called, so but everything worked out, and he laughed it off, and now we can talk about the new arena.
There you go.
I got a Saddle Dome question for you. Have you been on the catwalk? Have you been on the catwalk?
Up top there? No, I'm not the biggest heights guy. I've seen a few people walk up there, though.
That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, it looks terrifying. It looks like it could come down at any point.
When that building's rocking, it feels like it can come down at any point.
I bet.
I want to listen. There's a lot of guys that are here at this player media tour here in Las Vegas who are number one picks, first round picks. How do you go from being a seventh round pick to being where you are right now? I mean, you could probably talk for an hour and a half about how you've done it, but if you could just break it down into a small little bit here, how do you do that? How do you go from where you were? And I remember you were sitting you were there at Prudential Center, and you got your moment, even though it was a seventh round pick, to where you are now. Yeah.
Well, my mom got her moment there. She jumped up and cheered, but oh man, I'm not exactly sure. I think for me, I don't think about these guys here as a first overall. Obviously that's great for them, but when you get to the NHL level and if you're a first overall pick or you're the seventh round pick, everybody's got the same shot and the same opportunity to an extent, of course. I think I just was a little bit more resilient with mine, and took the opportunities when I could take them, and never looked back. Used some motivation when people kind of doubted me, to dig in a little bit more to prove people wrong. And, obviously some bounces fell my way, maybe a little bit of luck involved with it. But it is pretty special and pretty cool to be at an event like this. I never really would have thought that I'd be, on the NHL media tour representing my team. And, it's an honor to be here.
Do you have a lot of interaction with players that maybe you don't know, and you get to socialize a little bit and trade secrets or just gossip?
Yeah, no, you know what? I haven't really been able to, sit down with any of the guys that I here. Obviously, it was, even though he's only, I'm pretty sure 19 or 20, but Bedard sitting in the van, it's pretty cool. I'm sure my buddies would find it cool that I was sitting in the van with him and stuff like that. It's the little things like that. But no, I don't think I've gone out of my way, overly drastic to, sit down with a lot of the guys and talk about secrets or gossip. I think there's still, you don't want to get too close because you got to play them during the year and stuff like that. But everybody's been great. Everybody's been meeting each other and saying hi, being respectful and whatnot. But I'd love to sit down with a lot of different guys and, hot stove and see what they, say and what I can learn from them, because everybody's a pretty good player here.
Yeah. So you're sitting in the van with Connor Bedard.
Mm-hmm.
He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
He's scoring a point a game.
Yeah.
You were somewhere really far down in your journey to here. Is it possible to even relate to what he is experiencing, or is that just a different world?
No, I don't think I can relate to Connor and what he has to go through. I'm sure he's a lot busier than I am with a lot of these different events. He's a special player. I remember, playing him this year when he came back from his injury. We were on a 5-on-3 with a minute into the game, and it wasn't very exciting for me to have him come down for a full 2 minutes on a 5-on-3 power play. But he's a special player. He's going to be great, one of the greats, and he's gone through a lot. You can tell he's a young pro. who speaks well and carries himself well. It's pretty cool to see.
What's the best thing you've done in hockey so far?
The best thing I've done in hockey, that's a tough question. It's a good question. The best thing I've done, I hope, is treated the young guys well. Hopefully they can look at me as one of those guys that they want to have on their team, and I'd do anything for any teammate of mine, and just hopefully they know I'm loyal to them and would do anything to win with those guys. I don't know, maybe an achievement. I'm not exactly sure. Those are all personal achievements that are just for yourself, but just for me, just being a teammate and a good teammate, a glue guy in the room, making everybody feel comfortable, and something like that.
Do you feel like you've seamlessly, if you will, moved into a leadership role in Calgary?
A little bit, for sure. I think that's just because I'm getting a little bit older, a little bit more comfortable, more games under my belt. I've got to, have a few good captains in Florida and here now as well with Bax. And I think with having Tanny back there for, a year and a half, learning so much from him and, his warrior mentality and his leadership skills. When Tanny left, I kind of wanted to make it, not as much that he left, keep his, his lessons and stuff around. And he's done a great job at keeping that culture, building that culture here in Calgary, and especially on that back end that, it was a bit seamless for sure.
Everybody's experienced rivalries in their career. Like, you grow up on it. That's what fuels you. I would imagine when you're in Florida, that Tampa Bay rivalry was just starting to get going. Can anything prepare you for the Edmonton rivalry?
The Battle of Alberta special. Yeah. It's been around for a lot longer than the Battle of South Florida, for sure. It's special. You can feel the energy between the two cities before that. I definitely wasn't prepared for it. I was very nervous. I think it was maybe my first or second game against Edmonton, my first year with Calgary. I believe we won that game as well, which is nice in Edmonton. But having to play against, Draisaitl and McDavid, and, obviously they got a good team over there, but, it's a great rivalry, sorry. And those are easy games to get up for. You just want to win for your city during those games. It's a special night, those games.
Bring it back to your team for this season. If the Calgary Flames are going to have a better year than you had last year, what has to happen? What's the key?
Definitely a few things, but I think for us, it's going to come down to work ethic. Getting those young guys on board.
I was going to say, the young guys got to get going.
Yeah,
right?
It's definitely the young guys and their culture. Obviously, I think that's a lot on the leadership group, though, to get those guys going. If the leadership gets them going, then, everybody's kind of on the same page. You got to believe in the game plan, like Huss game plan and his systems, and have a full buy-in with those. But get those young guys going, make them feel comfortable, get their confidence up, have some fun together, work hard. But, for us, we got that underdog mentality this year. The expectations kind of gone down. So, we can kind of roll with that and have that as our storyline throughout the year, and, have some upsets.
I'm curious, how does a leadership group work? Like, you talk about it, right? And you got to get these young guys aligned and ready to go. Do you guys talk about it, the leaders? Do you have conversations about this and how you're going to do it, or is it more organic? How does that work?
I think a little bit of both. Definitely organic. I think sometimes, me and Ras, we'll talk about, one young guy on the back end, or, if one guy's struggling, just go have a couple words with him, or, do you want to have a little chat with him, or, oh yeah, I got that, I got this one this time, or whatnot. But obviously, Bax has his leadership meetings. Husk will, pull 5 or 6 guys into his office with the leaders and, go over a few things. But you definitely need that, those 5 or 6 guys to be pulling every night on a consistent basis, because, a lot of those guys will, follow behind them.
This was great, Mackenzie. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes and stopping by. Good luck this season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that's enough on the Western Conference, Sean. All right, we did Celebrini, we did Weegar, we did the predictions for the West. Both great interviews. We thanked them both. They're both from the Player Media Tour a couple weeks ago. Let's go East. and we disagree. We agree on the team that's going to represent the East in the Stanley Cup Final. There is similarly one disagreement between us and our playoff teams, and I am shocked, somewhat appalled, but shocked, Sean. I have the Carolina Hurricanes in the playoffs. You do not. I thought you were a big Carolina guy. I thought you were a big Rod system guy. Love the way they play. But you have the Pittsburgh Penguins in. I'm shocked.
I am a big Carolina Hurricanes guy. I am a jerk. I am amongst the bunch of jerks. Ask anybody, they'll all tell you he's a jerk.
No.
So I've always enjoyed the Carolina Hurricanes. I do. I think Rod's a fantastic coach. I love their ethos. I just think it catches up to him this year. And I look at Pittsburgh and I look at Crosby and I think he understands there's not much left. There's not much time left. There's not much talent left. There's not much of anything left. And if they don't do it this year, there's going to be humongous changes. Kyle Dubas spoke before the beginning of the year. I think he had like a 7-minute opening statement. He never mentioned the Stanley Cup once. Not once.
Why would he? They're not even close.
Because that's the goal.
It is, but they're not close.
It doesn't matter. If you have a shot at getting to the dance.
It's reality. It's reality.
Okay. Well, it's not go ask Sidney Crosby.
I'm not going to ask Sidney Crosby. I know how he feels. But Kyle Dubas is he understands. Of course Sidney Crosby thinks they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. If he didn't think that, what's he doing? He's one of the most competitive people I've ever met in my life. Of course he thinks they have a chance to win the Stanley Cup.
And that's why they're in the playoffs this year.
Okay, listen, here's my bold prediction for this season. You ready for it? Not only will the Pittsburgh Penguins not make the Stanley Cup, that's not a bold prediction. Kyle Dubas, who will go based on how this team plays. Decisions around the trade deadline will be made by how this team plays. Will be determined by mid to late February. They will not be good enough in his mind. And then Yevgeny Malkin gets traded. And Yevgeny Malkin agrees to it because he also sees I'm almost 40 and my chance to win here in Pittsburgh is done. I don't have it. I'm okay with it. That's my bold prediction that Yevgeny Malkin will get traded by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I'll even give you a team, to the Los Angeles Kings. Because the LA Kings and Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille have a recognition of time is running short. And if it doesn't happen for them soon, they also might be out. They're going to make a bold play. They're going to go after Malkin. Malkin, who has 2 years left on his deal. This one and next year will be added to the Los Angeles Kings before the 2025 NHL trade deadline on March 7th. He gets traded.
I personally don't think the Kings are going to be in a position to trade for him.
They're going to be close enough. They're in a different place, I think, than the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they're going to be in the same spot as the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're going to be close, but not quite in. But they're going to look at it and say, we need to make a bold move to get in and give ourselves a chance. Whereas the Pittsburgh Penguins are in the other mode of, you know what? We're not close. We got to make a move here, a bold move to build for the future.
Without Drew Doughty, they're going to get strafed.
Perhaps. It's called a bold prediction for a reason. It's very bold.
Yeah, it's great. Good for you.
Wow.
I don't know
just
what
totally
you want me to...
You're just not even entertaining the thought, are you?
No, because I don't think that core is ever going to get broken up.
Well, I think Kyle Dubas would break it up in a flash if he could. And I think the opportunity will present itself. And part of it was stripping away. Listen, Gensel is not Crosby, Malkin, Letang. But Gensel was a big piece. And there was an understanding there. And he got moved. That was the first salvo in stripping it apart. And it's not, and I wrote about this in my mailbag this week, Sean, it's not to go into a Blackhawks type or a Sharks type or a Ducks type rebuild. That's not what the Penguins want to do. They want to try to build the layers behind the core, the aging core, and recognize that if it's not happening in the season where they still have the aging core, Let's try to build the layer behind it. Maybe we'll see if we can strip Pace away. They're not going to strip Crosby away, and Letang has too much time left on his deal. Malkin's the guy. And if you acquire Malkin now, you also get him for next year. And that might be the last bit of Yevgeny Malkin that you get. I think if you're looking at it, a team right now, you want to get Malkin now, have him for potential of 2 playoff runs, not 1 as he's approaching 40 years old.
Sure.
Not entertaining it.
No, I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to happen. But I'll tell you 2 people that aren't going anywhere. Jeremy Swayman.
Nope.
And Linus Ullmark. Each of whom signed a pretty lucrative deal this week. They're having that final hug to celebrate the heist that they each made in the past week. Swayman signed an 8-year deal for a little north of 8 a year. He had a little more than 64 million reasons to show up for the last day of camp. And Linus Ullmark, right before this podcast, signed for 4 at 34. So again, 8.5, matching
8.25. Yeah, 8.25 is what they got.
Yeah, so matching contracts for the 2 Bruins goalies from last year. One's now in Ottawa and one's in Boston.
I'll give you a third person who's not going anywhere. Igor Shesterkin's not going anywhere. He will sign with the Rangers at some point, and it will be a huge deal. I know Kevin Weeks reported he turned down 8 times, 8 years, $88 million. It's a negotiation. We don't know where that goes, but he's going to get between 11 and 12, if not north of that. He's staying with the New York Rangers. I'd be shocked. I mean, totally shocked, fall down, crazy shocked if that doesn't happen. Okay, so let's put that to bed. Swayman, I understand. I get the deal. The Bruins, 64, 66. Okay. Ullmark's interesting to me. Ullmark's very interesting to me, Sean. I'll give you the numbers quickly. When he was with the Buffalo Sabres, he played in 117 games. It was not a very good team. It was a team that was trying to build. Played in 117 games. He had a .912 save percentage and a 2.78 goals against. He won 50 games. Solid. When he played with the Boston Bruins, who were much better defensively and a really good team, he was good. He was terrific. He won the Vezina, .924 save percentage, 2.28. Right? Goals against average. That was 130 games. What are the Ottawa Senators? What are they? To me, we don't know. This is a great play for Ullmark. Get yourself the 4-year deal. You now have 5 years with the Ottawa Senators. You're getting paid the most money you're going to get paid in the National Hockey League, and you've yet to play a game that matters behind this team. They're building, but what are they right now? We don't know. So is this the Buffalo Sabres, Ullmark, or is this the Boston Bruins, Ullmark? If it's the Sabres, Ullmark, it's solid, but I don't know if it's worth 8.25. If it's the Bruins, Ullmark, it's not just terrific. It's way better than it's a bargain at 8.25.
I think he's in the middle of those two, right? I think he's a better goalie today than he was in Buffalo. I think working with Bob Essenza in Boston, changed his game fundamentally, and I think he'll be a better goalie. He's not going to play in front of as good a defense, not even close, although neither did Jonas Korpisalo in Game 1. But he's going to be tested more. I think Ottawa, new owner, they needed to make a splash. They wanted to make a splash. It's really hard to keep talent there. So when you identify somebody who you think is super talented, which they did in the trade that they made for him, you get him under contract and you send a message that, hey, this is a place where people are going to want to be going forward. So I think that's what it was about. But I think the far more interesting conversation, both of those are what they are. And it was in the neighborhood of what we expect goaltenders to get paid. It's a little high for both, I think. One, because of the situation, and then Swayman because he doesn't have the body of work. Shesterkin has the body of work. Shesterkin has the success. The salary cap's going up, but I still don't know if, as a team, you can survive with a goalie in more than $10 million of your salary cap.
I can't disagree with you, but he's going to get it. He's going to get it. I mean, listen, theories are what they are, and I understand them, and I'm not denying them. I question it too. I do. But if you're the New York Rangers, you're going to walk away from it? I highly doubt that. You can't. Like, what's your backup plan, right? And they are a team, and this is not just last year. This is going on almost 2 decades. That's built off of the success of their goaltender. They've long been the team that's built off of the success of their goaltender. The years that they had Henrik Lundqvist, they never had a number 1 center. They didn't have a number 1 defenseman. They had Lundqvist. They won. They went to the Eastern Conference Final in 2012 and 2015. They went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2014. They won. Now they got Shesterkin. They have a number 1 center in Mika Zibanejad, but he's not a top 5 or maybe even a top 10 number 1 center. He's really good, but he's not that. They have an elite scorer in Panarin. They never had that with Lundqvist. Adam Fox is the number 1 defenseman. The game has changed, right? So you have these players now, but the game is still, for the Rangers, built around the success of their goaltender. Look at the playoffs last year, right? I mean, the game is built around the success of their goaltender. It's their power play and their goaltender. They can't walk away from that. That's how their team is built. And Shesterkin's coming up on a contract year at the right time with a team that wants to win, that's ready to win, that's been apparently on EA's 25 simulated to win the Stanley Cup this year. He knows it. He knows he's the best thing that they got. And he knows the cap's going up. The stars all align for him to get that mega deal that he wants. So theories are what they are. He's going to get it.
I don't doubt it, and I think it's going to be more than 11.
It's going to be closer to 12, if not at exactly 12.
That's a big piece of the pie.
It is, but let's throw it. Vasilevsky gets 10 when the cap was much lower. The cap's going to go up. The percentage is going to stay around where you would expect it to be for Shesterkin. So there is that. I mean, the cap right now, the cap could go up to 92 next year. But by 2 years into that deal, the cap could be at 95 or 96. 3 years in, it could be at 100. And if he's still playing as well as he's playing, well, eventually it's going to be just fine, I think. But then you see Stuart Skinner take his team to the Stanley Cup Final last year, right? You see these things, but Bobrovsky, a $10 million a year goalie, won it.
Yeah, but to me, goaltending's such a fickle position, right? Bob's contract was an albatross.
It was.
Until he found himself again. You know, Skinner couldn't stop a puck early in the year. Like, it's a 2-goalie league now. The dominant number 1 is almost extinct. It's going the way of the dodo bird, right? It's Shesterkin, it's Hellebuck, it's Saros, and Georgiev, right? And
Vasilevsky.
Yeah, Vasilevsky, who was hurt last year, and I think he's going to be much better this year, and that's one of the reasons I have Tampa as high as I do. But I if I were a GM, I would be really hesitant to throw that kind of money at a goalie.
I think Chris Drury probably is hesitant, but I also think he knows he has no choice. So there's that.
And we have no choice, Dan. We have no choice but to end this podcast.
I wanted to end it with one more bold prediction, though. I have one more. You didn't give any bold prediction, but I'm just going to give one more.
Well, when they're as idiotic as yours are, I don't even
want
to
get in this game. Stop it. How about this one? This is not idiotic. Alex Ovechkin scores 42 goals this year, and he beats Wayne Gretzky by 1. Does it this season?
That'd be great for hockey, and it's going to be a great chase. And we've turned it back to hockey, which is the most important thing. Money's fun. Contract negotiations are fun. People, when Shesterkin came out yesterday, when Kevin Weeks posted that from the Nickelodeon amusement park or wherever he was,
SpongeBob behind him.
People in our office went nuts.
I'm sure they did.
Right? And that's the beauty of it. Like, people love to talk about money and what players are worth and all of those things, and that's fun. But the game is on the ice, and that's what we care about. It got underway yesterday. It's just going to keep on picking up momentum this week. There's so many great storylines, and, we'll be back next week to discuss more of it.
Yep, and I think by Friday, if I'm not correct, I believe by Friday, everybody's going to have a game. Everybody's going to have played a game already. We are ready. We're no longer ready. We're in it. We've got a bunch down, more to go, a lot more coming at you. So we'll be back next week. Enjoy the hockey.